Taehyung's tears shook millions when Jungkook's betrayal came to light. Fans struggled to believe the idol they adored could do this. The sound of shattering glass echoed across the dressing room, sharp and jarring against the muffled roar of the arena outside. Taehyung stood in the center, chest heaving, his hands trembling so violently that the microphone he held almost slipped through his fingers. His voice, raw and breaking, tore through the tense silence. "Tell me it's not true, Jungkook. Just tell me." Jungkook didn't answer. His head was lowered, his hair falling forward like a curtain, hiding most of his face. But even through the shadow, Taehyung could see it guilt, heavy and undeniable. His stomach twisted, the kind of sickening lurch that comes when the ground you've always trusted suddenly collapses beneath you. Outside the walls, fans were still chanting their names, oblivious to the implosion happening just meters away. The air smelled faintly of hairspray and sweat. But now there was something else, a metallic tang from the shattered frame on the floor, its glass scattered like jagged fragments of memory. Taehyung's mind raced back to the moment, just hours ago, when he'd stumbled upon the messages. Not rumors, not speculation. Hard proof, lines of text, laced with a familiarity and intimacy that didn't belong to him but to someone else. And not just anyone, someone he trusted almost as much as Jungkook himself. His throat burned, each breath heavier than the last, and he could feel the heat of humiliation crawling up his neck. Jungkook finally looked up, his eyes glistening. "I didn't mean for you to find out this way," he said, his voice low but steady. That steadiness made it worse. It wasn't the tone of someone caught in a misunderstanding. It was the tone of someone who knew exactly what he had done. Taehyung's hands curled into fists, his nails biting into his palms. "You didn't mean for me to find out? Or you didn't mean for it to happen?" His words came like a blade, slicing through the stagnant air. Jungkook's silence was answer enough. The world seemed to tilt, the hum of stage equipment and distant fans' screams blending into an oppressive, suffocating noise. He could see every detail of Jungkook, the rise and fall of his chest, the small twitch in his jaw, the way his fingers flexed as if they wanted to reach out but knew they had lost that right. Memories flooded him in flashes. Laughter in the practice room until dawn. Shared meals when the world outside felt too loud. The quiet reassurance in each other's company during endless tours. All of it now tainted, infected by the truth that could never be undone. A knock came at the door. A manager's voice, urgent but cautious. "We're on in 5. Taehyung didn't move. His eyes were locked on Jungkook, searching for a shred of the person he thought he knew. But all he saw was a stranger wearing a familiar face. He inhaled deeply, the breath shuddering in his chest. And for a moment he considered saying nothing, walking out, letting the silence speak for him. But the betrayal demanded words. "You broke something you can't fix," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper, yet heavier than any scream. "And I don't know if I can stand on that stage with you tonight." Jungkook flinched as though struck, but Taehyung didn't stay to see the rest of his reaction. He stepped past him, the smell of cologne and guilt lingering in the air, and pushed open the door. The hallway lights were blinding after the dim dressing room, and the noise of the arena surged forward, swallowing him whole. Every step toward the stage felt like walking across thin ice, fragile, dangerous, one wrong move from shattering entirely. He could hear the fans chanting still, their voices full of joy, hope, and belief in something that no longer existed. As he approached the curtain, he wiped at his cheeks, but the tears kept coming, hot and unstoppable. The stage manager raised a hand, signaling for him to be ready. Taehyung stood there, gripping the microphone like it was the only solid thing left in his hands, and drew in a breath. He knew the performance would go on. It had to, but nothing, not the lights, not the cheers, not the music could drown out the echo of the betrayal that had just rewritten everything. And somewhere behind him, Jungkook stood in the shadows, watching, knowing that the moment he stepped forward into the spotlight, the world would see not just the idol they adored, but the man who had just broken the heart of the one who trusted him most. The music hit like thunder, but Taehyung's voice cut through it. "Stop!" The band faltered, the lights held their breath, and an arena's worth of sound collapsed into a hush that felt like a fall through open air. For a heartbeat, only the fans' collective gasp moved the air. The cameras didn't blink. The live stream kept breathing. Sweat shone on Taehyung's jaw as he lifted the mic and said, steady and shaking at once, "I can't sing this like it means the same thing as yesterday. Jungkook was 3 steps behind him in the geometry of the stage, shadow under a rain of LEDs, the shape of his shoulders rigid as if a hand had gripped him there. The in-ear monitors buzzed with 1,000 insect voices managers shouting, a music director begging to keep the show on rails, a producer asking what happened. Taehyung shut his eyes for 1 second, and the second was heavy enough to bend time. He opened them and looked straight into the primary camera, the lens that fed the world. The syllables dragged across his throat with barbed wire. "I'm sorry." The arena trembled, not from the subwoofers, but from the tenor of 10,000 heartbeats thrown out of rhythm. Somewhere in the stands, a fan screamed his name. Somewhere else, someone started to cry. Security rippled along the barricades. The band backed down to the softest pad, a musical question mark waiting for an answer nobody had prepared. Jungkook's mic came alive with a soft pop. "I'll sing it," he murmured, as if offering a bandage to a wound he'd made. But even his voice, bright, athletic, tuned by years of stagecraft, couldn't find purchase on the moment. The opening of the song swelled again, thinner now, and Taehyung stepped back as if the music were fire he couldn't walk through. The choreography shattered. Instinct replaced counting. He walked toward the wing. The camera followed like a dog that didn't know it had done something wrong, and the screen above the stage showed his profile, handsome and ruinous, as tears tracked clean lines through makeup. "Taehyung." Jungkook's voice changed shape, his body turning with it, steps heavy with decision. He moved after him, cutting across his mark, ignoring the entire architecture of the show. Hands reached from the pit and brushed his sleeve. He didn't slow. "Taehyung, wait!" The curtain swallowed Taehyung, the noise slamming shut behind him as he broke into the underworld of backstage. Cables, tape, whispers, fans, chants, muffled by concrete veins. He moved like he had to outrun something inside his own ribs. His throat tasted like pennies and ash. A stylist stepped out and then shrank back into the scenery of pelican cases and garment bags, eyes wide, breathing a prayer to any god awake at this hour. "Please," Jungkook said, catching up, catching his wrist. Taehyung's skin flinched under the touch like a burn. He pulled free, every sinew in his arm telegraphing the message his mouth sent a beat later. "Don't." Jungkook's breath hitched. He swallowed hard and the movement was childlike, terrified. A glitch in the man everyone knew. "You didn't read it right," he tried, voice low, desperate. Not for the first time tonight, shaping the truth into a thing that might be swallowed without choking. "You didn't see the context. You saw pieces. It's not what you think." Taehyung's laugh came out as a crack of dry wood. "I saw my name turned into an absence. I saw you planning it. That's enough context to bury me in." A runner trotted up, tablet in hand, complexion drained of all strategic color. "We're live worldwide." Cameras caught. She couldn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The word lived all around them, under their shoes, in the hum of the floor. Betrayal. The show, obedient to gravity, had to continue. A director's voice in their ears pleaded for professionalism, for any kind of smile, for the band-aid of a hit song. The set list scrolled past Taehyung's eyes, like a stranger's handwriting. His lungs hurt. His heart tried to pound through his sternum and run out into the night. "Give me your in-ear," Taehyung said to the runner, his own feedback dead now. She reached, hands trembling, swapped units with the speed of someone whose career depended on being faster than a crisis. Sound rushed back, the grid lit up. Stage left calling for a camera pivot. Lighting bumping saturation down. An executive voice whispering about PR language and damage containment like you could pour sand on a wildfire and call it a beach. Taehyung didn't go back. Not yet. He moved deeper, past a stack of black cases stamped with cities like scars from tours past. The smell of hairspray thinned into the industrial breath of the building. His reflection stuttered in a dented metal door and looked older than it had 30 minutes ago. He pushed into a smaller corridor where the noise fell to a faraway ocean. His hand found a wall, cold and matte under his palm. His knees wanted to go somewhere gravity would be kinder. He wouldn't let them. Jungkook hovered a careful 2 meters away, hands empty, as if fingers might prove guilty all on their own. "Listen," he said again, a word like knocking on a locked door. It began as a dare, as a test. It was supposed to be nothing. It was supposed to help you. It's ugly, but it was supposed to be strategy. The sentence spun a carousel of sick colors inside Taehyung's head. Help you. Strategy. He turned slowly. His vision steadied on Jungkook's face. He knew that face better than he knew his own reflection, in cheap hotel mirrors, in airport windows at 4 a.m. That familiarity mocked him. A fake friend. You fed false stories to see which of our friends would sell me out? The words arrived from somewhere far behind his tongue. Jungkook blinked hard. Not stories. A rumor controlled at the source. We were going to leak a whisper that you'd turned down a solo endorsement. The person who spread it? He broke off. The weight of names in his mouth was too heavy to lift. We needed to know who was bleeding us. Someone close. Taehyung's jaw tensed until it hurt. You used my life as bait. Jungkook didn't move. I tried to use mine first. They didn't bite. When they did with yours, we'd know who. We could protect. Protect? The word ignited in Taehyung like a match in dry straw. His voice rose, filled the corridor. You burn the house and call it a fire drill. You call it protection. You call it strategy. All I hear is that you chose for me. You made me the trap. You trusted your plan more than me. Footsteps hissed closer on gaffer-taped floor. A manager softened into view. Eyes careful, voice pitched to be gentle, and land like an order anyway. We need you both on for the medley. The world is watching. Taehyung's laugh broke apart. Let them watch. The manager inhaled, measuring variables that didn't exist on any spreadsheet an MBA had ever seen. If you go back out there, she said to Taehyung quietly, you control the story. If you don't, it controls you. Jungkook's eyes flicked to the floor, then up. Do it without me. I'll take the hit. Say it was my idea, and I didn't ask you. Taehyung leaned into the wall. The coolness, a mercy. His heart staggered. You didn't ask me. Silence came like a heavy coat. No one reached to help him into it. He closed his eyes, and memories unspooled in high definition. Jungkook asleep in a studio chair, a hoodie pulled over half his face. Jungkook laughing with his head thrown back, a sound that had once been the best room in any building. Jungkook promising, in the language of exhausted, hopeful 20-somethings at dawn, that they would keep each other safe. A seam tore somewhere inside. He straightened and opened his eyes on a new world. Fine, Taehyung said, voice even now in a way that made both men opposite him go very still. We go back. We go back, and you don't sing for me. You don't speak for me. You don't even look like you can read my mind. This stage is a border tonight. Stay on your side. Jungkook nodded like a man learning to breathe underwater. Okay. They moved, a small procession, through arteries of black tape and soft light, until the stage rose in front of them again, hungry and bright. The audience roared as if welcoming soldiers home from an unannounced war. Taehyung felt the sound touch his skin, prick it, enter his bones. He lifted his chin. The downbeat detonated. The medley began. He didn't break. He sang. He reinvented breath, alchemy in a chest, turning pain into notes that soared like migratory birds, finding a route no map had promised. The cameras loved him, because pain prints beautifully if you don't flinch. A headset squeaked in his ear with compliments dressed as instructions, and he didn't hear them. Jungkook stayed on his side of the stage, as if the floor would crack between them if he didn't. When harmonies braided, their voices touched like strangers passing in a doorway, polite, shocked by the accidental brush of hands. The choreography found a new geometry that preserved a distance and made art out of it. Fans felt the cold that wasn't in the AC. Phones went up like a new religion. Between songs, a new thing happened. The main screen behind them bloomed with a message the audience read like a shot of espresso injected straight into the heart. The words, technical difficulties, scrolled in small print at the bottom, while the visual froze on an image of Taehyung's face. Then the feed flickered to a pre-edited package that had never been in the run of show, a montage cut with quicksilver hands. Behind the speed, you could see the bones of it. Screenshots of a chat, blurred avatars, timestamps, a waveform of an audio file with a red dot labeled leak, 412. A blurred face with the caption source. A whisper ran through the arena like a weather change. The director screamed in their ears. This wasn't them. Stage managers started moving like chess pieces thrown across a board. The package rolled anyway. Someone else had slipped a hand on the wheel. Taehyung's mouth dried. The screen cut to a subtitled transcript snippet that everyone could read too easily. He won't say no. He owes me. We need a cleaner story for why he missed the meeting. Say he was overwhelmed. It play better. Jungkook's face blanched. The camera found him, magnified that blanching into a public weather event. He took one step toward Taehyung without thinking. Stopped when the remembered border rose before his shoes like an electric fence. His throat worked around words that found no mic. The package cut to audio. A male voice, distorted, familiar if you'd memorized it for years. Tell them he needed rest. Tell them we had to cover for him. The brand likes a vulnerable arc. Taehyung's breath fractured. The audio hit him with the physicality of a shove. It wasn't the rumor about an endorsement. It was an older bone still broken. 3 months back, a studio meeting had been missed. A music journalist had written a piece that said Taehyung couldn't commit. A chorus on a single had been reassigned. The internet had used the word unreliable like a hobby. He'd been furious at himself, then at fate, then at silence. He had asked Jungkook what to say, how to navigate the narrative, how to keep the title pull of the story from dragging his ankles. Jungkook had said, "Say nothing. We'll write it out." He had obeyed. He had ridden it out like a man without a horse. Now the screen showed there had been reins the whole time in someone else's hands. The audio warped and died. The screen snapped back to live performance like a rubber band returning to shape, except nothing in front of it matched the old outline. The crowd tensed into something feral and protective all at once. Some voices booed. Most shouted both names like a spell to turn back time. The band, poor planets alone in their elliptical orbits, played through the cue in their charts. Stagehands swore softly into headsets. In the dark beyond the first rows, phones birthed 1,000 tiny night skies. Taehyung didn't look at Jungkook. He didn't need to. He felt the heat of him as precise as sunlight through a magnifying glass. He walked to center, found the spot of white tape that marked his mark, and stood there as if the stage owed him its full attention. He sang the next verse, a fraction behind the beat, a decision that made the music ache deliciously, a sound like a wound trying to close. When the medley ended, he lowered the mic and lifted it again without asking for permission he'd been given by birthright and rehearsal. "There's been noise," he said, and the crowd reacted to the understatement like a joke that made them want to weep. "There are voices tonight that aren't meant to be here," he breathed. He let the breath be visible. "Mine is." Jungkook closed his eyes, not in prayer, but in the pain of hearing someone you love do something brave that you should have prevented them needing to do. He opened them. He walked forward. He stopped on his side of the border. He raised his mic. "Mine is too," he said. His voice steadied itself on the fifth word. "I made decisions I told myself were for us. I made them without him. I asked the world to love a version of Taehyung that fit a schedule better than the truth. I thought I was protecting. I was controlling." He turned slightly, toward the audience, toward the red light of the camera that stood in for the planet. "You deserved better. He deserved better. I am sorry." Taehyung didn't give him absolution. Not with a glance. Not with a syllable. The word hung in the rafters like a paper lantern that might burn the building down if anyone breathed too hard. The next number began. The stage swallowed them both again. Backstage afterward felt like the inside of a storm cellar after a tornado. Dust in the air. The smell of adrenaline without a body to reside in. Voices speaking too loudly because no one trusted quiet anymore. A PR woman with a bun built like a fortress ran through options that sounded like spells in a dead language. A legal guy said the words unauthorized broadcast insertion with the reverence other people reserved for the word God. Phones howled in pockets and were silenced. Howled again. A pack of wolves that had smelled blood. Taehyung sat on a case, elbows on his knees, hands hanging like he'd forgotten they were his. A makeup artist approached with a tissue and a mercy, and then stepped back as if she'd remembered you don't touch the body before the coroner clears it. Jungkook stood across from him, a man-shaped ache. The audio wasn't from me. He picked each word up and set it down where Taehyung could see it, clean and separate. The chat parts of it were, not those lines. He swallowed. "There's someone else." The leak meant to do more than expose what I did. It meant to salt the wound. Taehyung's gaze lifted, slow as moonrise. "And who would that be?" Jungkook didn't blink. "The person I tried to trap. The person who bit when it was your name in the water." He said the name at last. It fell between them, dull, and heavy. A friend from years before debut, a face in photos, a voice in late-night calls. Taehyung's stomach turned. The betrayal was not just from one direction. The corridors moved under his feet. How deep? Taehyung asked. And the question wasn't about the betrayal anymore. It was about the wound. Jungkook let the back of his head meet the wall. The sound soft, the gesture not. Deep, he said. Deep enough to wire the board. Deep enough to anticipate our set list. Deep enough to slip a package into the run of show without anybody catching it. They have help, or they are help. A pair of security leads walked in with a tablet. On it, the freeze frame of the package. The waveform, the chat. The security lead spoke quietly, like he was sorry to exist. We traced the insertion point. It was triggered from the secondary feed console. Badged this afternoon by someone with temporary credentials. Facial recognition says 90% confidence on a match to, he said the name. The same name. The coincidence turned into geometry. Lines triangulating on a point everyone now had to admit was real. Taehyung felt a memory detonate. A laugh across a practice room when they were 19. A secret told because it was safe to tell here. Because this was home. He closed his eyes. Behind them, color swam. So, I was a test, and I was also the target. No, Jungkook said too fast, because he wanted to catch the sentence before it hit the floor. You were the prize. They wanted the world to believe you were a problem so they could move you where they wanted. Or move you out. The room inhaled. A single rib cage learning the shape of the threat inside it. Outside, the arena had emptied into the night. Streets wet with neon. Fans walking slowly, turning their faces up to screens that fed them 100 edited angles of the thing that had just happened in a raw, merciless one. Social feeds boiled. Hashtags unfurled like battle flags. Statements drafted themselves in 1,000 browsers. Somewhere, the person who had pressed play on that package poured a drink and watched a city burn. Taehyung rose, the movement unremarkable and monumental all at once. He looked at Jungkook not like a lover and not like an enemy, but like the only other witness who could testify to the planet that had just tilted. His voice was quiet. The kind you use when you pick a lock. You don't get to fix me, he said. You don't get to fix this. You get to stand next to it while I decide whether it stays broken. Jungkook nodded. A muscle in his cheek flickered. I'll stand. The PR woman took a step forward, stopped. We need a plan, she said. We need a statement. Taehyung's mouth tugged at a shape that wasn't a smile. We need the truth. He turned to the security lead. Find where they are. Find who held the door for them. He turned to the manager. Find me a room with a desk and a camera facing a window. Not a set, not lights. I'm going to tell them what happened. I'm going to tell them what I did wrong and what I did right and what was done to me and what I'm going to do now. The room paused, then moved, like a heart learning a new beat. People peeled away in purposeful trajectories, radios stuttering to life, doors opening and closing like punctuation. Jungkook didn't move. He stayed in the gravity of Taehyung's decision. His voice, when it came, was bare. If you tell them everything, I'll lose things I can't get back. Taehyung looked at him, and the look contained years. Nights on buses, shoulders leaned together, the ordinary holiness of shared silence. So will I, he said, but I'm not carrying your mistakes anymore on my back with my name written on them. Jungkook's shoulders lowered a fraction. Surrender without display. Then I'll carry mine. In my name. They walked toward the makeshift war room together, not touching. The hallway seemed to return to its usual shape, as if the building had drawn a deep breath and let it go. On the way, they passed a mirror propped against a crate. Taehyung glanced. The man looking back at him had eyes he recognized and a mouth he didn't. He didn't look away. He wanted to memorize the face of himself who had lived through the hour when everything came true and everything was lost. The room they gave him had pale walls and a window that held the city like a commandment. He sat at the desk. He removed his in-ear and set it down like an artifact. He leaned toward the camera. The team fussed with levels and frame, and then at his look stepped away until he was alone with a slowly blinking red light. He didn't script. He spoke. He told the story as far back as the first time he'd learned to stay quiet when he was hurt because it made other people more comfortable. He told the story up to tonight, where quiet had weaponized itself against him. where kindness had been dressed in the clothes of strategy, where love had been translated into control without his consent. He said where he had failed, and the words didn't taste like poison. They tasted like rain. He said where others had failed him and didn't say their names yet, because justice did not need spectacle to be true. He promised to follow the proof to the hands that had held the knife. He promised not to make a theater piece out of his heart anymore, unless he was the one writing it. When he finished, he didn't ask if it was good. He didn't ask if it would play. He nodded to the lens like a man finishing a prayer and stood. Behind the glass, the city kept its counsel. He turned to leave and found Jungkook still there, in the doorway, the outline of him, a history book. Taehyung's throat tightened without warning. He had thought the next time he cried tonight would be alone. He wasn't alone. "You were my home," Taehyung said softly. The sentence, not a complaint or a nostalgia, but a fact. The way a map notes the mountain that changed the wind. "You were also the storm that took the roof." Jungkook's eyes welled and didn't spill. "I'll build a roof you never have to live under again unless you ask," he said. "I will stand in the rain outside and wait." Taehyung didn't answer. He stepped past him, into a corridor that had become a road. Somewhere behind them, the PR woman pressed send on a statement that would do a fraction of what the truth on camera would. Somewhere ahead, a phone vibrated in a pocket with a new message from a person who had once been a friend and was now a suspect shaped like a memory. Somewhere else, fans refreshed their feeds and wrote messages with hands that shook, love and anger braided into the same rope, ready to pull a man out of a river or tie a boundary around the people who thought they could own him. He found a door that led to the night. Cool air licked his face. The smell of frying street food and wet concrete reminded him he belonged to a world that made loud, ordinary miracles. He walked into it without deciding. He let the city carry him for a block, 2, 3, until neon came to rest on his cheekbones, and quiet settled in the spaces where music had lived all day. Footsteps matched his, a half beat back. He didn't have to look to know. "You don't get to follow me everywhere," Taehyung said, not unkindly. "I'm not," Jungkook answered. "I'm making sure the street knows your name isn't a target. I will stop when you tell me to." Taehyung walked another half block. A dog barked on a balcony and then decided against it. A bus hissed. The world behaved itself, a small favor he recognized as a gift. He stopped. He turned. "Stop." Jungkook stopped. Their distance held like a language they both suddenly spoke fluently. Taehyung looked at him. Really looked. The way you look at a photograph you've seen 100 times, and notice for the first time the way a hand was resting on a shoulder in the background, a detail that changes everything. "I don't forgive you," he said. "I don't promise I ever will. I also don't promise I won't." Jungkook nodded. Tears balanced and did not fall. "I don't ask you to." Taehyung's breath came slow and long. He nodded toward the block behind them, toward the room with the camera and the city for a witness. "This doesn't end tonight." "No," Jungkook said. "It doesn't." Taehyung turned away and kept walking. The city opened in front of him like a book that had thrown away its old ending. He put one foot down, then another, and the ground answered yes. Night rinsed the city in wet neon and sirens that never arrived, and Taehyung walked until the noise in his head turned into a steady tide he could stand in without drowning. A noodle shop breathed steam into the street. The smell of garlic and soy brushed his nerves with human hands. He ducked inside and slid into a corner booth, the Formica table humming faintly under a small refrigerator's compressor. His phone, face down, vibrated itself into an exhausted jitter. He didn't flip it. He let it dance. "Broth?" the owner asked, voice kind like a winter blanket. Taehyung nodded. When the bowl landed, the steam climbed his face and fogged his eyes in a way that disguised what had already been done to them. He didn't notice Jungkook at first. The door chime muttered. A shadow hesitated at the threshold, then respected the boundary set half a block back. Jungkook took a table by the window, the glass turning him into the ghost of his own outline as buses smeared their reflections across his chest. He didn't order. He folded his hands and stared down like he was afraid of startling the world. Taehyung ate because he could. The first mouthful was salt and heat, and the taste of a life that continued, whether or not a brand liked its arcs neat. He let the broth rebuild little bridges inside the parts of him that had collapsed hours ago. When the bowl was almost empty, he looked up. Jungkook didn't lift his gaze. That, more than any speech, was new. Taehyung paid, nodded at the owner, and stepped back into the wet street. He walked again. Jungkook waited a beat, 2, then followed at a distance that said, I am near enough to catch a falling thing and far enough not to touch it without consent. They moved like two planets recalculating gravity. When Taehyung reached the hotel, the lobby smelled like expensive flowers and panic. A trio of men in suits lowered their voices and pretended not to be looking at him. A television over the bar played the show they'd just done as if it were an event in another country's history. His face filled the screen, then Jungkook's, then a collage of comments that leapt across the bottom like stock tickers. Words snagged his eye. Betrayal, brave, manipulated, liar, protect him, cancel him, save him, all of it and none of it, true enough. The elevator doors sealed them into a shared silence. Their reflections stood apart. The mirror, a judge with no expression. On the 22nd floor, the long hallway stretched out. Carpet swallowing footsteps. Doors numbered like questions. Taehyung stopped at his room and slid the keycard. The light blinked green. He stepped in. He didn't invite anyone, didn't close the door in anyone's face. He just stood with the door open, back to the room, eyes on the city through the window like it was a person he trusted more than anyone alive. You shouldn't be alone, Jungkook said from the hall, voice quiet enough not to wake the expensive sleep of their neighbors. I'm not, Taehyung said. I have 30 million people in my phone telling me what to feel. His mouth twisted. And I have me. Do you want me to wait outside the door? Jungkook asked. Or leave the floor? Taehyung thought about the question a full 10 seconds, counting each as if it were an inhale he had to earn. Leave the floor, he said. Be in the lobby at 8. Not a minute before. Not a minute after. Jungkook nodded. Okay. Taehyung closed the door gently. The latch clicked like a period. He didn't sleep. He lay under sheets that felt like empty promises and watched the horizon lighten by degrees, the city pulling its face on in the mirror of dawn. Around 5, a text from his mother arrived. It didn't say, "Are you okay?" because she knew better than to insult him with a question that had only one truthful answer. It said, I love you. I am praying that the truth is kind, and that you are kinder than the truth has been to you. He pressed the message to his chest as if it were paper. He answered with a photo of the window and the line. I'm going to be okay, not because it's easy, but because I'm choosing it. By 7:30, the war room 2 floors down was a hive. Coffee steamed. Screens bloomed with dashboards that looked like airplane cockpits. Lawyers parked their briefcases like armored beetles and tapped laptops into defensive spells. The security team had run through the night and found more than shadows. A trail of access logs, a rental scooter left in an alley, a face at a staff entrance camera with a hat brim low, and an ear they could map to 1,000 old photos. The suspect's name kept coming back like a chorus in a hit they no longer wished to sing. The accompanying harmony was uglier. A contractor from a broadcast vendor whose invoice history suddenly showed more hours than made sense, and a junior publicist whose social media grew braver and stranger the more you scrolled back. Taehyung entered without armor, in a hoodie, and yesterday's grief. Heads turned. Conversations went soft. He took a chair at the end of a long table, a place no one had given him. He took it anyway. A live stream of the night's chaos, replayed on a side screen in a loop that had already burned itself into the internet's permanent memory. The package, the chat, the audio. He forced himself to watch it once more. He didn't blink. When it ended, he said, I've finished my statement. We'll upload at 9. The PR director, bun still immaculate, nodded once in a way that meant everything else was a footnote to that decision. We'll schedule, she said. We'll lock comments for the first 10 minutes to prevent brigading. Then open them. Don't lock them, Taehyung said. I'm not going to live in a museum. Jungkook came in at 8 on the dot. No earlier, no later. He looked like a man who'd fought off an army with a plastic fork. He took a spot across from Taehyung and didn't sit until Taehyung sat. The PR director slid a printout across the table. If you intend to go live as well, she said, this is a draft. Jungkook didn't touch it. I'm not going live, he said. Not at 9. He speaks first. If I speak, it will be to answer questions he's already answered, not to steer. Something in the room's posture changed, tiny as a field of wheat shifting when the wind changes from crosswise to along the grain. The lawyers whispered with pursed lips. The label executive on the far end, perfect hair and a tie that had cost more than a month's rent in most neighborhoods on Earth, leaned forward. "We need to consider the sponsors," the executive said, the word need shaped like scripture. "Brand risk models are already flashing. The audio, the implication you were packaging his vulnerability for narrative." "I was," Jungkook said bluntly, and the honesty hit the air like a thrown glass that didn't break because it was made of truth, not ego. "Nobody needs to spin it for me. I'll tell them myself." The executive blinked, wrong-footed by a subject refusing to be managed. "There are better ways to phrase, 'You've had your ways,'" Taehyung cut in, the first edge in his voice this morning. Surgical, not wild. He looked at the executive, not away. "And this is where they brought me." Silence found a seat and crossed its legs. The executive unclenched his jaw and reached for a bottle of water he didn't open. Security darkened the doorway again. "We located the contractor," the lead said, and everyone stilled. "He's in the wind. Turned off his phone at 2. Dumped his badge. But he has a sister hospitalized in town. We have eyes at the facility. If he tries to visit, we'll know." "And the other?" the PR director asked too casually, meaning the old friend whose name sat like a knife on the table. The lead nodded. "He's bold. He posted at 6 a.m. about truth coming to light with a winky emoji. He's at a cafe 2 stations away from the venue. He thinks he's safe." A heat unfurled in Taehyung's chest that wasn't anger so much as a fever finally breaking. He stood. "No cameras," he said, looking around the room as if daring someone to disagree. "Not for this. No microphones. No handlers." Jungkook stood too. "You shouldn't go alone." Taehyung's eyes flicked to him. "I told you to be in the lobby at 8, not to follow me at 9. "Then I won't follow you," Jungkook said. "I'll arrive separately and sit at a different table. Or across the street." "Or across the street," Taehyung said. "If I need you, I'll text a dot. Not a word. A dot." Jungkook nodded. Fate and instruction both. 15 minutes later, the cafe smelled like espresso and sleep's aftertaste. Morning light laid a clean stripe across potted ferns. The suspect, no longer friend, not yet formally enemy, sat with a laptop open, typing like someone composing history in real time. He looked up when Taehyung slid into the seat opposite him and smiled the old smile. The one that had once won him extra time in dorm common rooms and a favor from a coach. The smile didn't fit his face anymore. It sat on it like a borrowed shirt. "You look good for a man who cried in HD, he said. Taehyung folded his hands. The move tamed the tremor that wanted to make his cup ring against the saucer. "You look like a man who forgot the part of me that remembers." The man laughed, shaking with the pleasure of his own wit. "Remember what? That I introduced you to the producer who gave you your first real solo? That I talked you out of quitting at 21? That I taught you how to answer questions with more questions?" Taehyung held his eyes. It felt like making 2 magnets face each other the wrong way. "That I told you the truth when no one else got it. That I cried and didn't hide it in the room that was ours." A shadow of something honest crossed the man's face and was gone. "You were soft," he said. "It was sweet." "You were hungry," Taehyung said. "It was ugly." The barista placed a small folded napkin next to Taehyung's cup, as if she could sense a need for ritual. On the napkin, in perfect handwriting, she'd written, "We love you, no charge." Taehyung didn't look away from the man across from him. "You used my name because it was loud," he said quietly. "You used my pain because it was free." The man's smile tightened. "Your pain was expensive. That's the point. It bought you headlines. It bought you narrative. It bought you an army of other people's empathy. Don't be hypocritical. You know how this works. You're just mad I asked for my cut." "What did you ask for?" Taehyung's voice didn't rise. The cafe measured itself by his calm. "A seat," the man said. "At the table. At any table." He leaned in, pupils bright like something feral had crawled up behind them and taken over. "I made you inevitable. I leaked the old rumor in a way that made you sympathetic. Then, I made him look like a villain. Do you know what that kind of synergy costs on the open market? You got it for a few hurt feelings." Taehyung exhaled. The sound was gentle and extinguishing. "You think I am a market?" "You are," the man said simply. "Ask your bank app." The door chime jingled. It didn't break the tension. It added a note. Across the street, from his chosen window seat, Jungkook watched with a stillness he learned from years of standing in lines that felt like cliffs. He didn't try to read lips. He watched the slope of Taehyung's shoulders and the angle of his chin and the way his hands moved, because he had learned to read that language before either of them could afford translators. "I don't need to ask you why," Taehyung said. "I know why. The year you didn't make the cut. The year I did."